first three, the general, the debt service, and the capital outlay, are the major funds. The other funds within that down to student activity are the non-major, but they're also called special revenue funds. In particular, the student activity is the fund that runs the revenues and expenses that go through the schools. All right, you turn over to page 13. Again, we're still in the executive cemetery summary here. This is good. Okay. The one thing I really like about the executive summary is it has a lot of good information that is summarized, and three of those summaries we're going to go over right now. It's a summary of revenues, expenditures, and fund balances. So it's just, there's some schedules in here that give a quick overview for each fund and where they stand. So on page 13 is the summary of revenues. In particular, you can see that it shows the actual for 21, 22, 23, the final for 24, and the budgeted amounts for FY 25. And then that last section shows the difference between 24 and 25, the section in blue, by amount and also percent. So something to note, if you look at the general line for the general fund, you can see that between 24 and 25, there's a 15.4 budgeted increase in revenues. A lot of that is due to property tax increase, WPU increase, other local revenues, which include building rentals, driver's ed, summer school, things like that. It also, within that number, also includes a decrease of federal programs. Unfortunately, we got, and you'll hear about this a few times today, we got last minute notification of Title I funds being cut by $5.5 million. And that'll come up a few times just during this conversation. But that's net inside of that. The next number is the debt service revenues. Now we know debt service funds are just used to pay towards the GO bonds. So you're like, well, we're paying down our GO bonds, then why is there an increase in that? I just wanted to point that out because the increase is showing because for FY24 amounts, those FY24 amounts include the 3 increment cut in the tax rate that we had last year. But the FY25, we didn't include that in the budget, an increment decrease for the FY25 amounts. So that's why it's showing that.
And the 3 increment wasn't how it naturally came down. It's what during Truth and Taxation last year, we said we have enough fund balance here to be able to reduce it, bring in less revenue than we need expenses to pull down fund balance from about 40 million to like 29, like 42 to 29 million. So that 3 increments, it came down more than that just naturally on what we owe, what we need to pay, but also an additional 3 to be able to offset the increase in the levies.
Okay, if you turn over to page 14, it's the summary of expenditures. If you have any questions, please ask. I just want to highlight a few things on here. Again, the general, the debt service, and the capital outlay. The general shows an increase of 15.4 in expenditures. Big majority of that is the group insurance increase, the step lanes and COLA that was determined through negotiations. It also includes a net decrease of about $8 million in salaries. That is due to the expiration of COVID funds, ESSER, some Title I adjustments, and the tricky part is with trust lands and TSSA, we don't have all those plans in yet, so those are complete budgeted amounts. Until we know and receive the plans from the principals on where they want to allocate those funds and what to use them for, we're not sure if they're using it on salaries or something else. So that's just something that we're trying to budget for, but it's difficult until we receive those plans. Again, the debt service expenditures will go down just because we're paying off that debt. Also, the capital outlay shows a $119.4 million decrease due to the completion of pending projects like Desert Sky Elementary that got done, and also a large portion of the Eagle Mountain Middle School. Okay. All right, let's go over to page 16 for the summary of fund balances. Again, this summary, the general line, we're showing a 3.6 decrease in the fund balance for the general fund. And that, again, you could attribute to the group insurance, but also that is really the support of the Title I cut and trying to help out and make ends meet for Title I just due to the late information that we got in that $5.5 million cut. And then also I wanted to kind of note the nutrition, first of all, the capital outlay showing a $20.8 million increase. The 20 million is what we call a placeholder because of the budget process and the capital projects that were approved through the budget process. We have preloaded 20 million of those projects in FY24 in an effort to allow projects to start through the summer. So whatever's spent in 24, those amounts will be adjusted for FY25 as well. But that's just a placeholder for that. You'll also see nutrition services a decrease. That's a planned decrease in fund balances because there is a federal regulation that the fund balance or the cash resource for nutrition services needs to be limited to 3 months of average expenditures. So we're guessing average expenditures about 3 or 4 million a month, so it should be down to about 12-ish. And so Buffy and Nutrition Services are very aware that that fund balance needs to be brought down, and so we're aware, and that's why we're showing that fund balance decrease. Now let's go ahead to.
So on this, just a couple of points here, that what we were saying there, if you look at debt service, so our debt service fund balance was at 45, almost 46 million. Now we're projecting at the end of this year be about 28 because we're using that with the 3 increments we took off to be able to pay, and then it stays even right there as how we have it budgeted now. There is still room to be able to, through truth and taxation, if we go through that and raise in the board and capital to be able to go again 3 increments down in debt service to use up some of that 29 million, which would take it down more into the $15 million range of the fund balance. The other thing I wanted to point out here, just a general philosophy that we use when we're looking at revenues, when we're looking at expenditures, we're budgeting for expenditures at the worst case. So like the final budget for FY24, in any of these funds, we cannot go over in the expenditures, or in the audit, we get a big finding there. So those budgets for expenditures are set higher than we can get to. So they're set very aggressively there, and then the revenue is very conservative, both on the final year and for FY25. We're being able to set expenditures are going to be here, revenues here, knowing that revenues are going to be higher than we budgeted and expenditures hopefully are going to be less, and will be there in the middle. So showing a $3.6 million deficit where we're going to pull down from fund balance. It's about 3.6 both in FY24 and in FY25, 3.6, 3.7. But we're expecting when that all evens out that it'll be about even. The other thing we had at the end of last year, we were able to, through a state law, unrestrict about $13 million of funds from state programs to be able to use for other things. The only way to use them, because we unrestricted them, they became part of fund balance, the only way to use them is to be able to have expenditures a little bit more than actual revenues. And so that is a way to be able to use them. So that's why that $3.7 million, although it looks like we're not balanced there, we should come about even, and if we don't, we have that 13 million that we plan to use either in FY24 or in FY25.
Okay. Also on that same page, page 16, Jason's going to get to this a little bit later, is a summary of the tax levies. So it's just a quick glance on what all the tax levies are.
Jason, you don't put that 13 million in the budget.
Well, yeah, it can be budgeted as an expense, but when we're looking at, so how that works there, it's not budgeted as a revenue because we already had it. It just becomes a fund balance. To be able to use it, you have to spend more in expenditures than you brought in revenue to be able to draw down that fund balance.
So the question was, is this a balanced budget? The answer is
yes. Yeah, because if you look at there, and even where we were, so if you look on this one, at the end of FY22, we were at 106 million in general fund and fund balances. It jumped to 120 million at the end of last year. Because of that, about 13 million we were able to unrestrict. Now we're saying at the end of FY24, we're going to be 116, which is 10 million more than we ended 2 years prior. And then at 112 or 113 is still 6 or 7 million higher than the end of FY22.
Okay. Other things including the executive summary are a listing of the general fund FTE detail, the things that were determined through negotiations for certified, classified, and administrative employees. It includes major fund summaries, also a summary of budget expenditure forecasts. It includes, towards the end of it, includes the student achievement indicators, which is RISE testing results, graduation rates, and also early literacy benchmarks. The last page of that section, on page 24, is the Association of School Business Officials Budget Award for FY24. We plan to go out for that again for FY25 and feel confident in that. All right, next section is organization section. There's a lot in this section, and I'm just going to run down some summary points with that. It includes a history of ASD, a summary on the local economy and what's happened in the last year. It also includes accounting and budgetary policies. Of note are Utah laws as they relate to budgets, as well as significant accounting policies that we use in Alpine School District. The budget, if you turn to page, let's see, page 39, Jason was talking about how the budget process really extends throughout the year. I like this because it has a listing of the budget calendar and the different parts of the budget calendar process on 39 and 40, and really goes in details what all is involved, and that's why I say a lot of people in this room are involved in this whole process. It also includes detail on account structure. In particular, it includes detail on function and object. Those are two parts of our account numbers in all of our school accounts. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but we are using function and object throughout this entire report to summarize the data that we have. Also included this year, thank you, Joel. Joel could explain this better than I can, but on page 47 is the Alpine School District Coherence Map, which includes the mission, vision, values, areas of focus. It's just a good thing to have to remind us what we are all about in Alpine School District. It also, the last section of the organization section, you turn to page 50, it includes different summaries and overviews of every leadership department in the district. And so, for example, this one is the Board of Education. It includes an overview of that department, so to speak, as well as FY24 accomplishments, FY25 objectives. On page 51, it also shows the actual FTEs for FY21, 22, 23, the budgeted for 24, the proposed for 25, as well as expenses for those years as well.
So can you just, I just want to, so under the accomplishments,
Yeah.
it mentions allocated 65 FTEs for class size reduction. Now, is that just the total that we use in class size reduction?
That's a total that is the board FTEs for the year to allocate.
Okay, so that's not new
No.
FTEs?
No.
Okay.
Good question. There were a lot, as you page through these organizational sections, there are a lot of changes this year. And of note, we have a chief of staff position that was added. We have an executive director of legal services that was added. The executive director of operations used to be called the executive director of internal relations and operations, and that's been changed. There were some other name changes to the executive directors as you page that. So some of these organization overviews are a little bit different than last year, just due to those changes. Okay, let's go to page 74 and 75. This is where we start getting into the numbers. On pages 74 and 75 is a budgeted combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is where we go object and function. If you look, go ahead. Yes, please.
Object and function.
Okay.
Can you just help me out? I mean,
I'm
it was
gonna-
highlighted in blue and.
I'm gonna get to, that's that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Oh, good, good.
So if you look at, just to keep it really, really simple, if you look at object, you're gonna see the differences in the expenditure sections and the summary statements in this report. That's how we break it out. Object, you're looking at what is it? When you look over at function, you say what was it used for? So if you look under this on page 74 under expenditures, you say, what is it? Well, it was salaries, it was benefits. Scroll down, supplies and materials, property and equipment. And then on 75 under expenditures, by function, what is it used for? You see instruction, support services, debt service, non-K-12, those kind of things. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Well,
You
the
just
totals,
think that way.
the totals, you see the total revenues, total expenditures will be the same, it's just how it's categorized
Yeah,
into
exactly.
two tables.
And that's what's nice about this book is everything by function and object, the totals match by revenue, expenditures, and fund balances. If you look at them, they will all match, but the expenditure sections will be grouped differently based on
just gives
those
you a
two
new,
things.
a different way of
Yes.
looking at it.
Because people say, well, how much was spent on instruction? That's why we have
Gotcha. Thank you.
that. All right, so 74 and 75, if you kind of keep your finger in that, if you wanted to compare, and then you page back to 102 through 105, they have the exact same information for 74 and 75 is just budget numbers for 25. But back in 102 through 105, those also include the actuals for those same schedules for 21, 22, 23, and the budget for 24.
Or 74 and 75 doesn't have FY 24, 22, 22.
The history.
Okay, and back again to Ada's question, if you turn to page 116, there's a pie chart by object and by function. So again, these are general fund expenditures. So if you ask yourself, okay, what is it? It's at the top by object, it's salaries, it's employee benefits, it's supplies and materials, that's showing what is it. The next one is what was it used for by function. Instruction was 71.99% of general fund expenditures. It's also used for transportation, maintenance, student services, those kind of things. It's just, there are pie charts throughout the report as well. If you look over on page 117, again, going back to what Jason was talking about, just kind of highlighting the fund balances from FY23 and FY24, you see that decrease in fund balance due to the 3 increment cut and then using the fund balance to pay down that debt instead in FY24. Hey, and throughout the first part of the financial section, the major funds, the general, the debt service, and the capital outlay have more detail for those funds in this book. Once you get to the non-major funds, which start on page 124, then we go to more summary statements by function and object. So all of those non-major funds, you'll see just summary statements by function and object. But again, like Jason said, the totals will be the same by revenue, but it's a good overview of each of those. Okay, towards the end of the financial section, you'll see summary statements for 5 years. 5-year summary statements. On page 140. On page 140, you'll see just another summary of all those governmental and proprietary funds for all the years that we have mentioned before by function and object. And then if you go to page 144, the last part of the financial section actually gives 3-year budgeted forecasts by object and by function. So to begin with each of those funds, you have a budget for FY25, but then forecasts for FY26, 27, and 28. On page 160, it's just the example that's on the slide. For the student activity fund forecast, again, you'll see the revenues, the totals by object and by function on 160 and 161. You'll see the budgeted titles across the top for the forecasted years. Along the right-hand side, you'll see projected growth rate. That's either a positive growth rate or a negative growth rate. And then on the bottom of each statement or schedule are assumptions used to set those growth rates. So if you're wondering, well, how did we come up with this percentage, like 1.5 or going forward? And I know as we know, there was legislation recently for student fees and how some of those will be going away starting FY26. So that would have been one of the assumptions that we used in the forecast going forward for some of those years, knowing that student fees will decrease in future years. Okay, and then finally, the information section. I'm not going to go into detail, but I just listed some bullet points of all the things that are in that. A lot of the things in the information section are things that are shown as summary in the executive summary, but the details back in the informational section. Things like property tax rates, taxable values, enrollment comparisons, outstanding debt, and nutrition services statistics. Again, this is where we can find detail. If you're looking at the executive summary and you want to go into details, then you can go back to that section. And from there, if there are any questions, otherwise, Jason is going to kick off the property tax side of this.
Great job. Any questions so far before we go into property taxes?
Are you gonna talk about 167? I just wondered if you could give us this amount based on a $488,000 home.
Yeah, we'll have stuff in there on things here.
I'll wait till it comes.
Okay. So this next section is what really, I appreciate what B did in taking us through those. So the last few years, we haven't gone through that much detail on kind of flipping through the book. We went back and looked at our presentations the last 2 years, and it was mainly just about the property taxes. So we've got an improved presentation this year, thanks to B. Okay, so property taxes, this is our rates for FY24, the final rates, and what we estimated originally in FY25. The rates that are in this book right now aren't necessarily estimated. We have some actuals, some are still estimated. So what we have here, we have the capital, voted, and board, and then debt service. So the three that are part of the certified tax rate process, whereas values go up, rates go down to be able to receive the same revenue, are capital, voted, and board. And those are the only three that can be taken through truth and taxation by a school board. The debt service is set by just entering into the state's program is how much revenue is needed to pay principal and interest on general obligation bond debt. So you can see here the capital local levy, in the current fiscal year, it was set at 1018. So that's 10 increments plus a little bit more. We estimated that would slightly go down to 10001. Voted at 1232, slightly going down. Board 778, slightly going down, and debt service staying about the same because of that 3 increments we took down artificially last year. So overall, we estimated growth, the overall tax rate value, the values of the property to go up 8%. Tax rate due to new growth, we estimated at 4%, and then estimated that rates would decrease by 1.6% due to the certified tax rate process. And we've talked about that before. Just because something, the tax values go up 8% doesn't mean revenue would. We only get new revenue on new growth. So if all that new increase in tax rate value was just inflation, there would be no new revenue. But the 4% we were estimating would be on new growth. So be able to get new revenue on that. So then this next slide shows what's actually happened. The debt service is still, we'll get that set probably tomorrow or the next day, and then the basic rates will come in on probably this Friday or next Monday. So the basic is not set yet either. So you can see we estimated pretty close on these. The capital voted, we're really close. The board local looking up just a little bit. That may be corrected a little bit too. We'll see how that goes. So the overall tax rate value, instead of going up 8%, went up 4.3. Tax rate value due to growth was 3.5. We estimated 4, so we were pretty close there. Certified tax rate value, as it's shown here, is up 1.5%. The board local levy, there was some RDA value adjustments the last 2 years, so that may come into play there. And then the charter school levy increased by 4.7%. And that's just set by the county and the state for the charter school levy. Okay, so this is in your book, but this is just showing what's happened with the property tax rates.
What? Do you have a page on there?
Yeah, it's right in the executive summary or the letter, I think, so I think that's on page 12. No.
3. Is it 3?
That's right after
Yep.
Shane's.
Right after Shane's picture. So the total is the 5598. Basic rate we're assuming right now that we've used for all our calculations is 1383. We're not, again, we'll get that number Friday or next Monday, and then we'll produce a new book with all of the finalized rates. So total increase right now at less than an increment, so pretty much flat on the tax rate as the charter school went up a little bit, the debt service went up a little bit, other ones were down, were about flat on the total rate. You can see that on the chart too, 5518 to 5598. Okay, so this is a graphical representation of the last 6 years of what the adjusted tax rate value. So in FY20, tax values were about $27.9 billion. And today, the latest in FY25, about $52.2 billion. Quite an increase in those 6 years. You can see, even though some of those, the orange one is the percentage change, so none of those are going down. We had an increase 1 year over the next of 16, 12, 11, and a huge one of 35. Then we had a 6 and a 4.3.
What page is that?
This is not in the book.
It's not in the book, okay.
Yeah, this is just an analysis.
Just
of,
based on,
right.
well, change on Friday.
And then this next one is, so this is just the adjusted taxable value, just what happened to the value, not having anything to do with growth. This next one having to do with growth. So we've been averaging, looks like they're somewhere between 1.9 to 2.5 billion in growth each year. And so the percent growth, you can see that's changed. We're slowing down on the growth, but this last year we had a growth, a 3.5% increase in growth, and about 1.7 billion was just due to growth. If we look back there, it increased from 50 to 52. And so I think what we were showing there, 4.3% growth, but 3.5%. So most of that was from new growth. We've also included in here the inflation rate. This was very interesting. So we looked at every month that would produce the year-over-year inflation rate, and then be able to average it for the fiscal year. So we can see that inflation was probably in FY20, 21, and 22. I think historically it's somewhere around 3% inflation rate. So for 3 years we were used to this low 2.1 or 1.5, then it jumped up to 7.2, 6.3 last year is now at 3.3 for the last 12 months. So it's getting closer to the historical norm of about 3%. We don't know if next year that'll show down at 2.3 or if it'll kind of hover around 3%. So that's what we're looking at there.
The cost of housing and food and gas did not go down, correct?
Which it usually doesn't go down, it's just slowing of the increase. Yeah, when people say, I hope things go back to the way, I don't think they ever will. Just we don't want them to be increasing 7% over last year.
Yeah.
But if they're increasing 1 to 3%, that's normal. Okay, so the state guarantee, this has to do with the 5-year look back, the hold harmless. So in the voted, we are approved with the voted local levy at 16 increments. Right now, in the current year at 1232, we're projecting, the actual for FY25 is 1222, which is below the 16. But we have a hold harmless that we still have a few years left. So we, for the state guarantee, our rate is at that 16 increments. So even though we don't locally generate that, we are guaranteed that amount for those 5 years hold harmless. And for the board local, it needs to be at 4 increments. You can see that we're above that. We're at 7.78 this current year and 8.42 next year. So all of that above the 4 comes in as unrestricted funds to go to use. So last year, that 7.78 before we went through truth and taxation was 3.78 or 4.78, and we increased it 3 increments. So the 4.78, it was above the 4 that it needed to be. All those 3 increments that increased it didn't affect our guarantee or didn't get offset by state funding. It was all able to come in as new revenue to be able to use unrestricted. So we can see it also, we need to look at the hold harmless of the 20 increments. You can see the last 2 years we're over that anyway with the combined. So we don't have an issue at all with the board. The voted, it'll come up soon where we need to increase that back to the 16 increments. And when we do that, it doesn't generate any new revenue because you have to get back to that hold harmless. So the second bullet point down there says, within the state guarantee, each local dollar generated an equal amount reduction in state funding. So if we were to, say in the voted local levy where it's the 12.22, if we were to go through truth and taxation and increase that to 16 this year, it wouldn't bring any new revenue. We would just, the revenue that came in through property tax would be offset by a decline in the state match.
So, last year, and by the way, I would appreciate any insights. This whole, well, we decreased the debt service by 3, but I thought the net effect was we got 3 more in our budget. So is that what you're saying here? If we do something similar with trading off debt service, is that a way of getting the money into our budget where if we just increase increments, we don't get anything debt surplus?
No, we can increase, so we'll have the recommendation there, but like if we increase in the board one, another 3 increments, and capital 4 increments, and reduce debt service by 3, then that's a net of 4 increment increase. Because we've increased capital by 4, which we've discussed before with being able to fund a high school,
Right.
4 increments. If we increase, and that's kind of off on its own, 4 increments, but on the operations, if we increase the board local levy by 3, we can reduce the debt service by 3 and have a net of 0 in that combination of those two.
In terms of total property tax.
Total
But in
property
essence,
tax.
you got the 7, you got 7 additional increments in terms of spending power.
7, yep, and then be able to use fund balance that's in debt service that can only be used for debt service, be used in 2 ways. It can be used by, what we did is reducing the effect to property holders that year, or you could pay off debt quicker. But certain times you can't. There's some call dates you can't do that on the debt. When they come, you could do that and you reduce your total amount of debt. The way that we did it last year was just be able to pull fund balance down and not have to collect as much from the property taxpayers that year.
So is this going to be, I mean, moving forward, there's no real benefit to increasing the voted local levy because, it just reduces the amount we get from it.
Well, but we only have 5-year hold harmless, so it was at the 16 within the last 5 years. That's why we get that. But as soon as that 16 of the highest water mark of it is gone, we have to increase it, and we can do that in a combination of looking at. You can change like the board one's 4 above, and if we went through increments again and did another 3, it might be. It'd be 7 above the thing. You could switch them a little bit to be able to do it. Same with capital, as long as the net. So at any year, you could say, well, I want to increase my board local levy by 3 increments and my capital by 3, and you don't have to do through truth and taxation because of that. But the debt service isn't part of that. If you're reducing debt service, so if we were to say we're only doing 3 increments here, but we're reduce debt service by 3, you'd still have to go through truth and taxation because the debt service isn't part of the certified tax rate process.
And when year is the hold harmless over, or?
I think we have at least 2 more years of it. Okay. So this is a visual of what the board local levy. I looked at last year's. This amount before we went truth and taxation was only about 2 or 3 million. So that was good that we increased that because those 3 increments brought in about 16 or 17 million more, and we're going to continue to do that. If we add another 3 there, then that would be about another $18 million or so. It's 15 to 18 million. Okay, so these are the options, the possibilities for looking. I know we have a meeting on Friday to discuss possibilities of using those increments. It'll be discussed this evening whether, because when we approve the budget, it's saying, okay, we accept these as are we going to have a hearing? Not saying that those are set, but the hearing would be communicated that we're that we would have that in August to be able to have the truth in taxation. So, if, like last year, if 7 increments was chosen, 4 in capital, 3 in the board, it would generate about a little less than $40 million of additional revenue, about $5.7 million per increment. So the cost of that $489,000, and that $489 is less. It's interesting that the median home value went down FY25 from FY24. So it's at $489. I think last year was like $494 or $498. But it would cost about $188 annually or $15 monthly for that 7 increment increase. 7 increment is approximately 13.7 on the truth in taxation. Additionally, the debt service rate could be decreased by 3%. So when we're looking at that 188.27 annually is only if we did the 7 increments and didn't reduce the debt service, because that's what we have to show. So we can do the math on that, but that 188 is going to be about 4/3 of that. Well, let's see, 4/7 of that amount for the amount there. So not a little bit more than half of that. So we're looking probably at about $100 when we have the debt service reduction, or about $8 a month on the increase. And that 13.7, you can see that it's about 2% increase per increment. So if we really only net a 4 because we reduced the debt service by 3, we're looking at about an 8% tax increase. And that 8% tax increase wouldn't be over what last year's taxes were. It would be what this year's taxes would be if we didn't do truth in taxation.
So it sinks and then you add it up.
And that's
So we didn't get that much decline.
It was about even right now. Yeah. So it would be about that increase. Okay. That is the last slide. Any other questions?
So again, I guess Superintendent asked this, but I'm just verifying. So we have what is essentially a balanced budget, is that correct?
Perfect. Yes, there's the 13 million that was used unrestricted last year that can be used and hasn't really been used for FY24. Can, if we have a slight deficit, which would be more expense than revenue, but we have the fund balance to cover it and still be able to have all our fund balance minimums that we need. And then FY25, if there is that $3 million, if that comes to fruition and that is there, then we still have plenty to be able to cover that deficit.
But this book doesn't make assumptions that can't really be made.
And there's no
Yeah.
assumptions in this book on revenue for increments. So this is if we didn't go through truth in taxation. So if going through truth in taxation, of course the 4 increments has been discussed in capital for to be able to team up with the lease revenue bond for the high school. So none of that is contemplated in this book for the building, the 4 increments, anything like that. Nothing in the lease revenue bond fund of any new lease revenue, just as is. And then, the 3 that we're recommending in operations is not included in this.
No additional questions? Okay.
It was very thorough.
Board President Hackett, that concludes our report.
Okay, at this point, are we adjourning to the open house?
No,
No.
No.
dinner.
Dinner?
Dinner's
Oh,
first.
dinner.
Open house.
Dinner's early, that's right, that's right.
And then the information opportunity starts at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, let's do that, let's adjourn for dinner, and then we can join the public out in the hallway to answer questions if you wish. And we will have 3 hearings tonight, they will commence at 6 o'clock. We have 1 minute to start, and if someone on the staff could go get the lists of speakers, I'd appreciate that. All right, welcome. It is a beautiful June summer evening, and we are delighted that so many of you have shown up with your enthusiasm and your inquiries and your concerns. So we will begin. We have 3 public hearings before the board meeting. I think most of you are aware of that, so our format's going to be a little bit different tonight. The first one is a public hearing for the 23-24 final budget. So I now declare the public hearing for the Alpine School District 23-24 final budget open. I have here a list of speakers who have signed up to give comment, and the first one will be John Gadd. So John, come right on up, make sure that microphone is working. Give it a bump. Wait, don't start time yet, everybody. Which he's done walking the walk here.
Good evening. My name is John Gadd. I have my home in Pleasant Grove for 24 years. So as far as the 23-24 budget, the final budget, I just wanted to talk really quickly about the money, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that the board is spending on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And those words all sound nice, but what they really boil down to is institutional racism against the straight white majority. In your budget on page 59, you have an executive director of equity, inclusion, and student support. And then down in the comments where it talks about what goes on with those hundreds of thousands of dollars, you talk about a district DEI committee, which the school board members serve on, and a district DEI parent advisory committee. And this is immoral and it's harmful. So on June 29, 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Students for Fair Admission v. Harvard that consideration of an applicant's race as one factor in making an admissions decision, particularly to realize the educational benefits of diversity, is unconstitutional. And Alpine School District continues to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program. And it continues to classify students based on their race and then treat them differently. Now, in the Declaration of Independence and in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the standard and the ideal is equality. But what the school district is implementing is something different. You call it equity. And those are not the same thing. They sound similar, but equality is giving equal opportunities to all students. Equity is all kinds of mischief, and what equity ends up being is looking at a student's race and their skin color and treating them differently. And I have proof. So I downloaded off your website today, and I printed this out. It's the Alpine School District Foundation Scholarship. And this is a scholarship that's offered every year. If you go back, you can look that it's offered yearly. But in the qualifications section, it says preference will be given to applicants based on, and then it lists a bunch of things. And one of the things it lists is race. So you're saying, when we give out this scholarship from the Alpine School District Foundation, we're going to consider your race. And if your race is a race that we want to give benefits to, we're going to give you a bump. But if your race is a race that we disfavor, we're going to move you down the scale. So if you have 2 applicants with the same grades, the same qualifications, the same activities, and they both want this scholarship, depending on that student's race, right off your website, you're going to give a preference to one student based on his or her race over the other student based on his or her race. So that's what the end result of your diversity, equity, and inclusion program is you treat people differently based on their race. It's immoral, it's illegal, and it's in violation of the... Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, there is no one else signed up to comment on the fiscal year 24 budget. So I now declare the public hearing for the Alpine School District 23-24 final budget closed. And we are adjourned from that hearing. The next hearing will start at 6:05, which is now. All right. I now declare the public hearing for Alpine School District 24-25 tentative budget open. We have two people that have signed up. John, come on back. You're first. And then John Barrick, the Johns. Okay.
Okay, so again, now I'm looking at this year's budget, the 24-25 budget on page 64. And it looks like there was some efforts made to sort of hide what you're doing a little bit. Instead of an Executive Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Student Support, you changed the name to Executive Director of Educational Opportunity and Student Support. But if you go down into the comments, it says the Executive Director of Educational Opportunity and Student Support has administrative responsibility for district equity, inclusion, and student support services. So you haven't changed anything, you've just changed the name. And the public's really smart. We can see that you just did a search and replace. Instead of a district DEI committee, you renamed it the District Equity Committee. But again, like I said before, the standard from the Declaration of Independence and from the 14th Amendment is equality. We should treat all people equally. But you changed it to equity. You should have a District Equality Committee to make sure you're treating everyone equally, but you have a District Equity Committee. And instead of a District DEI Parent Advisory Committee, you changed the word to District Culturally Diverse Parent Focus Group. So you changed some names, but it seems like you're just going to go on keep on doing the same thing. Here's a quote from Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice. Or excuse me, this is Ben Carson. This quote's from Ben Carson. He said, it's an article on the racist shift from equality to equity. There's been a subtle shift in the conversations. Its focus has moved from equality to equity. That is, instead of pushing Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s ideal of judging people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, equity would reward and punish people because of the color of their skin. Rather than equality of opportunity, equity would mandate equality of outcome. The goal is not only un-American, it is impossible to attain. Again, that's Ben Carson. So I guess I would just encourage the board to try again, instead of just changing a few words on page 64 of your tentative budget, go back to the standard from the Declaration of Independence and from the 14th Amendment. Treat all students equally. Don't go down this diversity, equity, and inclusion rabbit hole, which has been outlawed in state law, and it's widely recognized to have all kinds of problems. It creates all kinds of morale problems. It divides people based on race. There really isn't any place for it in our school district. Instead of trying to push diversity, equity, and inclusion, please go back to the right standard, which is treating people equally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. John Barrett?
I would like to thank Business Services and the board for the fiscal year 25 budget. I appreciate the opportunity to review it. I have just a couple of quick comments. On page 171, where we're estimating the future taxable base, and page 170, where we're using the current year fiscal year taxable base, June 4th, 2024, the Utah County Assessor issued their new valuation for the district, and it appears to be a little bit overinflated here, so I'd just like to mention that. And then on page 171, you estimate the historical projection for next year to be 12%, and it was about 3.5%. In the face of 7% interest rates and mortgages, we're unlikely to see even the historical average, which has been 6% since 2000. And so I think the numbers are a little bit high, which tend to underestimate the tax implications and impact to homeowners. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is on page 169. Nope, hold on. On page 167, excuse me. On page 167, you give the appraised value of a home, and you show the average value of a home to be $488,600, which I find to be fairly reasonable, but you have the average value of the home in 2020 to be $488,600, and you have it to be projected for next year to be $488,600. And that's a little budget trick. I've sent emails to the district under a prior business administrator that this is inappropriate. If you change the value of the house to match increases in the property tax base, it doesn't show taxes going down, it shows taxes going up. And so this is a budget trick. And I'd really like you to change it to show the actual average value of a house in 2020 and change it to 2021 and 22 because we know the value of houses have gone up. And I will email your business services director a copy of my example that shows that actual taxes have gone up 8.5% from 2000 to 2023, and this shows that in several years, in the last 2 years, taxes have gone down, and that's because of the budget trick that I mentioned. And so I would love to see a more accurate depiction of the average household value, and I'd be happy to email that to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, so noted. We do not have anyone else signed up to comment on the fiscal year 24-25 budget. That being the case, I declare the public hearing for Alpine School District 2024-25 tentative budget closed and adjourned. All right. Next. Let's see how we're doing. All right, the next public hearing is on the reconfiguration of Alpine School District. So I now declare the public hearing for a possible reconfiguration of Alpine School District open. I have a list of 10 people who have signed up to comment, and if you'll please come up in the order. I will announce 2 at a time, so you can come up. If you'd like to sit here on the front row, that would be just great. The first one is Tony Kretschner, followed by Michelle Sorensen. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Tony Kretschmer. Most of you know me as Anthony Kretschmer on the various Orem forums, What's Happening in Orem, Save Orem School Facebook pages. First of all, I'd like to thank Julie King specifically and Stacy Bateman for having wonderful blogs and interactive Facebook pages where we can actively discuss the district splitting. I'd like to read a post that was posted on Stronger Together, which is a political issues committee that was started specifically to stop Orem from becoming its own school district. This is by one of Alpine School District's community council members, Charlie Smith Largey. She posted back on July 25th of 2022, 4 months before the November 22 election in which Prop 2 appeared. Quote, I would love to see another scenario in which Orem City works with ASD to move toward an eventual split at the district. I've heard the superintendent say that the school district knows it's big, knows eventually it will split, but it will split when the time is right. If Orem City really wants a smaller school district, they could avoid all the issues of sharing resources, cutting Linden and Vineyard off, and needing to make exceptions for them, paying on current bonds, plus passing their own bonds, etc., by working with the district to split itself. If, for example, we had a Pleasant Grove, Linden, Orem, and Vineyard together, we would have 4 solid high schools with plenty of students and plenty of resources, and the mess of figuring out which students go to which schools over city borders would be eliminated. Plus, when a district splits itself, the resources like bus depots are split equitably, teacher benefit insurance are more stable, and the city wouldn't have to pay the school district for the properties. Yes, the city of Orem wouldn't have full control over its district, but that wouldn't have happened anyway, right? The school board works with the state school board, not the city council. It may not happen as soon as Orem would like, but if we're going to push for a smaller district, working with the current Stewart School District and the surrounding cities who are directly affected to help encourage ADS to split itself is going to be a much better scenario than any they have come up with so far. There were 166 comments on this post, almost all of them positive. I'll just read one. Thank you, Shirley Smith, largely. I find it disingenuous for some to claim that Orem is exercising its best option. If it's so great, why were you not informed of it, included in the process, seen it discussed vigorously in public meetings, and claims of it will never happen? Let the process of good governance work and lighten up. In my opinion, everyone who wants a seat at the discussion table is going to have to earn it. That was by Ada Wilson. I think we're at that point. The cities have earned the right to be at the table to make this decision. 10 cities have entered 2 interlocal agreements, which fall right in line with option 4. You guys are wrong to support option 3.
Okay, Michelle Sorensen, followed by Heather Lambert.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sorensen, Orem resident. I have 4 children who have graduated from Timpanogos High, and our 5th is a rising senior there. I would like to speak in support of staying together as one district, but if we were to split, I think the option the board has presented is the least disruptive, least expensive, and least divisive. As we all know, in 2022, a few city council members in Orem wanted to create an Orem-only single city district. I would like to clear up a misconception I have found from discussions with residents in other cities about the Orem Prop 2 vote. The reason given by those who wanted to split from ASD and because they did not want to support building new schools in the West and wanted to keep their own small schools open. However, during this election season, I was part of a group which advocated that although a large portion of our ASD bond money does go to help capital needs for the growth in the West, Orem greatly benefits from the reciprocity across the municipalities in the district. In a recent social media post, Lehigh City Council member Heather Newell pointed out how we mutually benefit each other. In her comment, she states, right now we have a balance between paying for the West's growth with bonds and they pay for the extra overhead in the East with WPU. This is exactly the position we used during our Prop 2 discussion. I would also like to add to Heather's observations that Orem and Lehigh also contribute to the district with their large tax bases. In the end, 72% of Orem voters chose to stay with ASD because they recognize this reciprocity and want to be a part of a district working to help all students throughout the district, not just their own city. Even after another difficult dilemma and the possibility of closing Orem schools, Orem residents elected 3 city council members who were in favor of staying with the district. This was a talking point during the following year's election. I would like every ASD constituent to know a majority of Orem residents know and understand the value and benefit of the reciprocity within our school district. WPU, bond funding, tax bases across the district are diverse, just as the needs are too. But as ASD has worked to create a well-run district, it serves its students well. From the MGT study, which was able to survey those most invested in the district, 88% say overall their educational experience with ASD is good or excellent. I appreciate the MGT representative, Mr. Richards' words when he said, if this were about the students, we would not be having this conversation because ASD serves its students well. In a moment of study today, I read this quote from a prominent ecclesiastical leader. A vocal minority oppose institutional authority and insist that persons should be free from any restrictions that limit their individual freedom. Yet we know from millennia of experience that persons give up some individual freedoms to gain advantages of living in organized communities. I hope that we can navigate this election season and strive to work together as 14 municipalities to give our students the most benefits and advantages together.
Thank you, Michelle. Next is Heather Lambert, followed by Wendy Jensen.
Hello, my name is Heather Lambert, and I live in Saratoga Springs. I'm here tonight for my own opinion, not any opinion associated with any position that I hold. So I wanted to address you guys as a board to let you know how I feel about this district reconfiguration. Right now, it's really difficult to kind of vocalize everything and how I'm feeling, but one of the things that I did want to say is that I feel like all of the sides should be focusing on the benefits for the children. This isn't about me. This isn't about my neighbors. This isn't about the East versus West. This is about our children, our future leaders of our communities, future mayors, future city council members, future Olympians, future teachers, future parents. We need to be focusing on what is going to be the absolute best for each of them and their educational needs. I do feel that a reconfiguration is what's best for their needs. Now we need to look at which configuration will serve them best. I feel, unfortunately, that if we stay together as one district, we are going to face repercussions from legislature, and we will no longer have control over how our district will be sliced in half, or thirds, or fourths, or fifths, and we will all feel the repercussions from that, and it will not be good. If we can come together and agree on something that will work for all of our children and give local control, then we can best serve our children and provide them with the programs that they need to succeed. And I just wanted to share that with you. Please think about the children and what's going to be best for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
My name is Wendy Jensen.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm having the same problem. So Wendy Jensen, followed by Molly Barrington.
Yes,
Thank you.
I am from Saratoga Springs. I'm a mother of 6. Today I am representing my children and the other children in the West. I am no longer affiliated with any groups that I held before. Today I want to tell you my concerns because I feel like I have not been heard. My concerns are real. You have taken away our buses. You have tried to take away our programs. You have canceled meetings to advocate for our new high school. We don't have enough room in our schools. Our children in the West have experienced a serious imbalance of programs. Growth is not being addressed fast enough, and the West Side has been underrepresented for years. That will continue unless we split. I have advocated for years. You have heard my pleas. I have sent emails. I have expressed myself in public, and you have not responded in a way that shows that you even care about my children. I am disappointed in the way the last school board meeting went. You have upset parents and teachers and cities, and it's time to do the right thing. It's time to build our school and do what is best for our children. No matter what, there are seismic issues in the East. There are growth issues in the West, and it all needs to be addressed. Alpine is too big, and you have neglected to take care of our kids the way that you should have. As far as the MGT study, I feel our money would have been better spent on students' needs elsewhere. I feel it's flawed. I want to thank the West Board members for their dedication at this time. I want to thank them for all the time they spend advocating for our children and their best interest. I'm requesting that the district vote for a split. The district split 3 ways, consistent with the current local agreements. We are no longer stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Molly Barrington, followed by Emily Peterson.
Hi, guys. This is hard for me. I have never been more disappointed in the board as I was the last board meeting. When you mock and belittle your constituents and the other local leaders, you sow division. You don't sow the love and the support of our children. The U.S. government and the state governments and the local governments have set checks and balances. And when the local leaders saw that the needs of their students were not being met, they set in motion these checks and balances. And they, being a governing body as well, which is quite a bit larger than Alpine School District Board, voted to go for the interlocal could be met. It wasn't a political grab. It was, we need to take care of our children. If you don't support all of the students, whether they're in the east or the west or the north or the south, you sink your own area of the district as well. The only way that this district works is for the board to work together. And there's a high school needed in the east. There's a high school needed in the west. There's several things needed in the west, but by your own numbers, not even MGT's numbers, the west will do just fine supporting themselves. They don't need the east, but it was very nice to have it. And if you don't support the needs and you belittle the needs of everyone in the school district, the other governments will take and make the decisions that need to be made. Nobody wants to work with people who won't work together to meet the needs of the entire district. The east-west argument is moot. If you don't work together, the district doesn't work. I am for the split because I see that board members won't work together and are starting to play the blame game. There's no blame here. You guys are supposed to be working for our kids. I have 5 nieces and 6 nephews in the west, and I have an equal number in the east. In the west, my nieces and nephews have to run to class to even try and get a seat. That's wrong. The high school should have been approved a year ago. And that way we'd have another year that our kids wouldn't be scrambling just to have a chair. Because you don't learn well when you're sitting on linoleum. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Emily Peterson, followed by John Barrick.
Good evening. I'm really short, sorry. Good evening. I wanted to start by thanking all of you guys for all of the hard work that you've put into studying the split, working with local leaders and MGT, and all of the other work that you've done. And I also want to thank those of you who are opposed to the split and still willing to look at all the information and hear what everybody has to say. I really appreciate that. I am for a split. So I've been to a lot of these meetings, a lot of local meetings, and I am an Orem resident. And all I wanted was for somebody to stand up and say, oh, but there is this group in Orem that wants a split. There are, 28% that voted for an Orem-only split, and another large population that would have voted for a split had it included other cities, because we are seeing problems in our school. We are seeing issues getting ignored. So the thing that I am the most passionate about that I am seeing right now is a loss of arts and music in our elementary schools. And this isn't something that I'm concerned could happen. It is something that has happened. Those FTE hours have been allocated to put another teacher in the classroom so that we can say that our classroom sizes are really okay and wonderful, and look at the test scores, they're great. But unfortunately, without art, you don't have a full education. And a complete education includes art, and it completes a human being. We need art. It is so important. And this step of using an FTE that belongs to an art teacher and a music teacher to put teachers in the classroom is the first step of a slippery slope that we have seen happen in the United States all over the place. And it's something that's hard to walk back from. Once you make that step and once you use that FTE for something else, it doesn't come back. It's not something that's easy to recoup. And So what I am saying is, whether this is a two-way split or a three-way split or no split, there are things that need to happen. Because right now, like, who cares about no art or music teacher on the east side when there are not chairs for students on the west side? And it's going to be a lot easier to solve those problems when we have a smaller district. But even if we don't, let's make sure that we're giving power to our principals. Let's make sure that we're giving power to local areas so that we can make sure that these types of things aren't happening and we don't fall down this slippery slope that has happened in many other districts around the country, and children suffer because of it. And again, I wanted to thank all of you for all of your hard work and all of your time, so thank you.
Thank you, Emily. John Barrick, then John Gadd.
I'm here today to talk about the lack of transparency in the financial information from the feasibility study again. Business Services is failing to use GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. They're using fiscal year 23 general fund operation data with fiscal year 24 capital data and fiscal year 25 data for the taxable base. That's taking apples, oranges, and peaches and combining them and calling it a basket of apples. It's just not true. I would ask why those choices have been made. MGT and ASD have told the West Side they had surpluses of $36 million and $30 million and $21 million and $18 million and $8.5 million, depending on the assumptions. You could be throwing darts at a board and be closer to the truth. The West Side Interlocal hired LRB Finance, who came and used the correct data, fiscal year 24 data, like I told you should have used, and they came up with a West Side deficit of $6.2 million. You gave them surpluses and surpluses and surpluses and surpluses, and they have deficits if you use the right data. So imagine the surprise of the West Side City Council people when LRB told them they had deficits, which I told you to. Moreover, Board Member Wilson in 2022 in Prop 2 claimed with her husband, who was the CFO for the Stronger Together PIC, that Orem was losing $30 million a year. Simply wasn't true. The Utah Taxpayers Association called that data that came from Business Services also patently false. And last board meeting, Board Member Wilson said that she was for option 2 because the twin financial pillars of the district, Lehigh and Orem, well, if Orem was losing $30 million 2 years ago, it can't be a financial pillar today. So which of those statements is false? I'd really like to know the answer to that, and I know what the answer is, but I don't think you want to tell me. And you're creating confusion by putting a two-way split. An earlier speaker said that half the board was against a split. None of the board is against a split. 3 members were against the two-way split, which was putting confusion on the ballot. They wanted to follow the cities, the interlocal agreements, and that is the right decision, as several people have asked for. ASD has potentially violated various provisions of Utah's Political Activities of Public Entities Act. I usually think that Superintendent Farnsworth is a pretty honest and straight up guy, but the video that he published that said MGT was independent was false. And after sending a proposed ballot initiative to the Utah County Clerk advocating using district resources and emailing them using district resources is a violation of the Utah state law. I'd be happy to discuss that with you further. The needs of the people aren't being met. The west side needs schools, the east side needs to fix their seismically safe schools, and we do need art in the classroom. Thank you so much for your time.
My name is John Gadd. So this is a pretty conservative school district politically, and most people are fairly conservative, and there's a couple of conservative ideals that I think are not being talked about. The ideals of limited government and local control. And the message that we keep getting from this school board and from the superintendent and from the business administrator is that bigger government is better government. The bigger the school district, the better. The more powerful, that everyone's better off. But the reality is, according to conservative principles, smaller government is better. And this fear-mongering that the school board keeps pushing to all the the employees of the district, that they're all going to be worse off, just isn't true. The reality is, with smaller school districts, students, families, teachers, staff, and taxpayers can all be better off, because the school boards of those smaller school districts will be more responsive, there will be less bureaucracy, there will be less red tape, teachers will have the latitude and the freedom and the flexibility to do their jobs better, and they'll be more satisfied. So there's all kinds of benefits that come from limited government, local control. Bigger government is not better. So why does the school board want to keep this bigger district? Why do you want to keep the biggest district in the state? And I don't know what's in your hearts, but usually when you follow the money, you can kind of see what's going on. If you go to the Transparent Utah website and you look up the highest paid employees in Alpine School District, you'll find, and first look up the governor. Last year, the governor made $211,000 in total compensation. In Alpine School District, 55 employees made more compensation than the governor of the state of Utah. For some reason, in Alpine School District, there's 55 administrators who must do more administering their little piece of the school district than the governor does for the whole entire state, because they get paid more than him. And so I think what's really going on is, with the smaller school districts, we're probably going to stop paying people up to $350,000 a year, which is what two people sitting up here today make. We'll probably stop doing that. But you know what? Teachers are going to get paid the same or better, and staff are going to get paid the same or better, and students are going to be better and better off, and parents are going to be better off, and taxpayers are going to be better off. So my urging for the board is, I don't think you were planning on these interlocals, the west and the central splits, being on the ballot. But now that they're on the ballot, I think the school board should step back and not try to put a confusing, competing split on the ballot. You've done your work. At the end of all this, I think you should vote to say, look, we're going to let the west interlocal and the central interlocal people vote, and we're going to let them decide what they want to do, whether they want to split away from the district, and then we'll regroup after that. My concern is that the only reason you wanted the split on the ballot in the first place is to provide cover so that you could push against it, which you're absolutely doing, producing videos and everything, pushing against the split, so that for the next 20 years you can say, well, we put it on the ballot and the voters didn't want it. But really, you fought against it. So don't put it on the ballot. Let the West and the central interlocal agreements go forward, and just step back and see what happens and regroup after that's done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Last, Leila Machado. Leila Machado. Did I say that right? Yes. Okay.
Thank you. So my name's Leila Machado Pay. I live in Saratoga Springs. I grew up in South Carolina in a very large school district, so I personally don't have an issue with the large school district. I recognize there's a lot of problems that you guys are trying to solve, and I really appreciate your time and all the work that you guys put into being school board members. I recognize that it is not always fun, and that getting yelled at in public is not a pleasant experience. So I appreciate you, and I know that you're going to do what's best according to your conscience. So just a couple of thoughts that I don't think have been shared yet. My husband is a teacher in Alpine School District. My sister-in-law is also a teacher in Alpine School District, and she was working in Jordan School District when the school district split, and the teachers did not receive a cost of living increase for 3 years. We're already dealing with retention issues for teachers across the school district, and I think that it's something that we need to really consider. The idea that splitting and gaining a lot of debt is going to lead to better teacher pay is a bit of a pipe dream. We don't value our teachers already. If you look at the benefits and the compensation that are available to teachers compared to the public sector, as an HR professional who deals with compensation, I can tell you they're not well paid for the amount of education that they have received. So I think that is something that you should consider. I also think it's a false equivocation to compare a school district to a government. It's obviously serving a very different purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leila. Okay, that is the end of our public comment. Oh, it's not the end of our public comments. Pardon? Reconfiguration. Okay, sorry. Page 2. All right, let's keep going. Janelle Hale, and followed by Megan Jorgensen. Come on up.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this. It's very, very important, and I know that you know that it's very important. I also want to say that I was here months ago, and
I was really grateful. I just made some comments, and I was just really grateful that I received a note back, a personal note, writing that the person there, on the board member, was really grateful that I spoke. So that just really is neat. My understanding is that the hearing is to decide whether or not the the district reconfiguration can be put on a ballot for November vote. And so if that's not what it is, I'm sorry. I do agree that a reconfiguration for Alpine School District should be on a vote ballot for November. And I'm really glad to see interlocal agreements. I think it's great. I'm grateful also for any art and music that is in the classroom. I definitely want to echo those two votes for that in the past, or mentions, I should say. I don't like to call people out. I just was really grateful for the things that were said at the last school board meeting. And I also am really grateful that I can get on the internet and watch the school board meetings. I can watch all of it. I can watch you do there, what you do here. And I really appreciate that. That really is nice. So I wasn't able to go to the end of May's school board meeting, but I was really glad to hear what Mrs. King said, because, and then also to learn these children getting around. I had no idea until I was aware of what was said, that such circumstances were going on. It's very, very difficult, and I know none of you want that to happen for your children, anybody else you know. And so I'm really glad that you're here, you're listening, and I'm grateful for those things.
Thank you, Janelle. Next, Megan Jorgensen and Ryan Newman.
So I have learned a ton tonight from all these comments. I had no idea all this was going on. I just wanted to take my right as a citizen to share my voice and say, I'm just in favor of the split. Thank you for all that you do. I know it's really hard to run a school district, so I just wanted to let you know that. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, Ryan, then Shelley Howard.
Hello, my name is Ryan Newman. I'm from Pleasant Grove. I teach at Pleasant Grove High School. I've been a teacher for 19 years in Alpine School District, educated in Alpine School District. I would like to just thank the board and thank everybody for their well thought out comments. It's been great. I would like to comment on behalf of teachers. I don't definitely speak for all teachers in the district, but I've had enough water cooler comments and conversations to know that there's a heightened sense of alarm amongst teachers in the district about a three-way split. And I've read all my emails, I've been to all my meetings, and I can comment on the comment that has been made to the fear-mongering. We, as employees, have not been fear-mongered by the district. It's just been informational. And it's more common sense that if there's a lot of deficit, we feel like our contracts are in jeopardy, and we feel like that we're just where the rubber meets the road for student learning. And it's a morale issue for teachers, and if the district becomes split into multiple smaller entities, then, and I know a lot of people think that teachers are insulated by our teacher contracts, but we're really not. Statute currently is that we would be able to have a contract for a year, and then everything would be renegotiated, and that scares a lot of teachers about the future of Alpine School District. Alpine School District, being large, is considered kind of a safe harbor for teachers in the state. Teachers want to come here. They feel like there's a good contract. And also I would like to comment, the idea of smaller government comes from some of our founding documents, but also I would like to just comment on the idea of large government comes from Federalist Number 10, that basically the minority rights and liberty would be protected in a larger institution, and that's the only way that can happen. And that's in the Constitution. So thank you so much. And on behalf of teachers, a lot of us support no split or a two-way split. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Shelley Harvard and then Lauren Earl.
Thank you. I've learned a lot tonight listening to a lot of the comments as well. And as a parent, I'm from American Fork, and as a parent, I when I originally was reading about it, it's like, oh yes, we need to split it. It's so large. It's just it's unmanageable. It's crazy. But as I have talked to teachers and tried to learn more about it, I have heard from them that it's kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that Alpine School District is the place that teachers do want to come because, you know, they have the numbers and the, you know, and let's be honest, the bottom line is money. That's what it's all about. And by splitting, I don't see that there will be more money. And I grew up in Sandy, so was part of the Jordan and Canyon split, and it's very painful. They're operating, you know, they'll operate in the red, and so just kind of my simple thoughts of how to break it down and process it was, if you have one household, that's the expenses for the one household. If you break those households into two, you now have the same expenses for both households, and you have double expenses now. And so it's going to cost more. We will have a tax increase, and teachers won't be paid more. You know, the split's not going to create more money. And so those were just kind of my simple thoughts, but I don't have the answer. I don't have all, you know, it's just a complicated situation, but that's how I kind of broke it down. So I'm in favor of a no split just from who I have talked to. And thank you. Thank you all for your management here.
Thanks, Shelley. Lauren Earl, followed by Kathy Miner.
This is scary getting up here, so I just thank you for everyone's comments and willingness to share. I'm kind of just like Megan. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, and I just want to voice as a citizen that I'm in favor of a split. So thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Kathy Miner.
It is a long walk up. Hello, board members, Superintendent Farnsworth, and Administrator Sundberg. Thanks for just being here and listening to all these comments and being invested in hearing from all the stakeholders. So my name is Kathy Miner. I'm a resident of District 2. I work in District 2. My husband has also worked in District 2, and my children attend school in District 1. My thoughts and feelings on this have largely been conflicted. But I'm now firmly in the camp that I think that we should split the district. My K-12 education did take place on the east side of the district. I loved my Alpine experience. I felt that I had many different ways to be involved academically in extracurricular activities. I was engaged in service and leadership opportunities. It was really idyllic. I, like many other employees and parents, do acknowledge that Alpine School District is well run. I do support the visions and goals of the DLT and the board. I think we are led by people of integrity. However, the more I've learned about the current funding structures of the district, and just the more I've become educated on issues in general, and just my time like living and working on the west side, it's become quite apparent that the visions of District Central are not being carried out equitably on the east side and the west side. School leaders allotted fewer FTEs per student population cannot prioritize student achievement in the same way school leaders who are adequately funded can. When school leaders use site budget to fund FTEs, there is a huge opportunity cost for faculty and students. Teachers with less classroom resources, professional development, mentoring, and coaching will not be as effective as teachers with access to these things, no matter how highly qualified they come. And unfortunately, these issues don't renew year to year as the budget does, but the cost of these overburdened schools is compounding. Burnout of faculty and school administrators exists where demands are greater than available resources to complete our work with pride. So like I said, I am for the split, but no matter what the result of this is, I hope that we can continue moving forward and working for what's equitable for students and staff everywhere in this county. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Next, Mayor McKinney, followed by Becca Morales.
Mayor McKinney from Fairfield. Probably half of you don't know where we came from. Small town out west of Lehigh. I have been involved with the school district since I've had kids. I have seen the lack of attention that the West gets. But my biggest concern is you have had 10 mayors come together and support this interlocal agreement. These people elected us to do what is right for our towns. Let us do what we're supposed to do as a town. We can do it. We're all prepared to do it. Let the West go and do their own interlocal agreement. Same with Central Lehigh. They can do it. I don't know why you guys think that we need to be together still. The Alpine School District has been around for as long as I can remember. I grew up in Lehigh, and yes, it served its purpose when we were all growing up here. It's been a good district, but we have grown tremendously out west. Let us go and let us take care of our kids the way we need to take care of them, the way that people elected us to take care of them. I am fully for the split, and I think that we can do it, and I want to thank Julie for what she's done to support us.
Thank you, Mayor. Becca Morales, followed by Melissa Clark.
Hi, I'll keep my comments brief. I'm here as a parent of a student at Dan Peterson School, and so I have a really special interest in special education. And there's, I think, not many of us that are able to have the energy and time to speak up. And even though this won't affect necessarily my son, who is 12, I think by the time he'll be just barely aging out, but I do have a lot of concerns for his classmates. And so I would just implore you, I know they're a very small percentage of the students in our district. I realize there's not many of us, but we are the most vulnerable, especially with access to services as the split happens, which it sounds like it's happening. So if that needs to happen, then I understand. I understand there are a lot of different concerns, but I would ask you to respect the educational needs of those students. I also wanted to make sure, as I've attended my local city meetings, there seems to be a little bit of misinformation potentially about where these students might end up after a split. My understanding right now is that the funding does not necessarily follow those students out of a district. So I would encourage you, and I've been getting different answers from different people as I've been asking. But as of right now, I mean, we have students in Provo that want to come to Dan Peterson, and we've been told that the funding will not follow them to our school. And even if the per student, I'm sorry, I don't remember the terminology, it's the per student, what is it? Thank you. That unit is a lot, educating a student like my son in the wheelchair back there is a very different undertaking, you know, compared to the typical WPU. So I just, I would encourage you to please consider that and I've gotten a big fat maybe from everybody when I've asked about the plan for these students. There really isn't a lot there. So please make sure that there's good information out there for you guys as you're considering that, whether the funding is following the students or not, how transportation is working, and what's going to happen to the kids that don't have a school anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, Becca. Okay, our last speaker, according to my sign-up sheet, is Melissa Clark. Go ahead.
First, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to be here. I serve publicly, so I know that when you hear us yelling at you, you hear us carrying loudly. So we're really, really grateful for the time that you've put into it. I've heard a lot of school board members say that we need to poll our residents. I've heard school board members say that this is a power grab and different things like that, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I have a ton to do as a city council member of our community, and I would rather not have to address this issue. But like a family, and with our kids, when they can't behave and get along, sometimes mom and dad have to step in. And I'm not saying that the cities are mom and dad, but what I am saying is it's clear that the Alpine School District is a dysfunctional family. And I pray that you guys can make it work. It would be amazing if we could fix these things. But the reality of it is I think we've passed that point of no return. I just want to share real quickly with some of the time that I have left. One, I'm a trained teacher. I taught for a decade before my twins were born. So I know what it's like to be in a classroom. I'm not coming to this information ignorantly. This is experience. I'm also a mother of special needs kids who've been in the Alpine School District since they were 3 years old when they aged out of Kids on the Move. So I know exactly what it's like to have a kid who's sped, actually 2 of them. But what I want to do more than anything is share with you that there are teachers in our district that are afraid to speak out because our highest ranking staff member of this district came and told everyone what he wants and what the district wants. And they're afraid to say what they really want. So I'm going to tell you what they've told me. Look at the geography. West Side is huge. When you listen to the East Side people talk, it's clear they hold us in contempt. I've lived here for 24 years. I've worked for ASD for 13. We've always been pushed to the side. Our Title I dollars are sent to the East Side. Our kids are suffering. Let's split and take care of our kids. Another teacher from the West. I used to be strongly against a split, but after watching all the school board meetings and attending some town halls, I've changed my position. One of the big issues for me as a teacher at Cedar Valley is that we need another high school. We are bursting. We have 40 plus students in our core classes. We are using janitor closets as offices. I'm out of time, but I'm going to ask you, have the courage to care about all the kids in our district, not just some in certain zip codes.
Thank you, Melissa. I have one more paper. I think this really is the last one, correct? All right. James Porter, come on up. You are really the last speaker on this, I think.
It's a lot of pressure to be the last person. As I sat back there and I noticed that there was still an opportunity to speak, one of the things that I wanted to convey, I've got 2 kids in the district, I'm from PG area. The concern that weighs on my mind, I'm an educator. I started off in a charter school, and year after year, I had to sit down with my administrator and find out whether I continue to have a job. So that sort of feeling is coming up again with this sort of situation. I'm worried about my fellow employees and what will happen to them. I'm worried because a lot of them work with the special needs groups or are kind of classified in that same category. And when I hear about budget issues and I see people who are fighting about, how much we're going to have, and sometimes they're saying, well, we're going to let whatever the situation rolls out to be, they're going to decide. That concerns me greatly. I think that we need to have a firm plan, and I appreciate those who are working towards it. I'm a history teacher by profession, so I went through and had a little fun looking at all of the different schools that have been built using the 100-year history that Alpine School District put out. And what's really interesting is there's a lot of opportunities on there where they talk about how bonds didn't go through, and yet Alpine School District continued to thrive. They were able to work through, figure out a plan to educate their students, and I think that that's something that we can continue to do. I think there are opportunities for us to look at and see how growth has affected us, and that we can continue to find ways to be cohesive and work together. One of the things that I don't think has been said as clearly is that there is that percentage that said how many people want to put on the ballot this issue. And for a lot of people that I've spoken to, and again, it's hard when you try to characterize percentages, right? But one of the biggest things we wanted to do is say, let's make a decision so we can move past it, whether it goes one way or the other, and start focusing on the educational aspects that we need to focus on. That we can spend less time talking about this sort of stuff and focus on curriculum elements and figuring out how to support students and teachers to be effective community members. I didn't pay to build the schools that I attended. I came up through Cascade, Canyon View, Orem High, and I think I'm a decent product of Alpine School District, but it was because other people saw the value of education and how that creates an opportunity for our communities to thrive. And so I think that I'd love to see more of that. I worry when constituents are, getting in there and saying, hey, we need to let these other entities decide what's going on. I think the school board's doing a good job in trying to put forward a clear message that says we want to figure out what's the best option and let everybody vote. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Okay. At this point, I declare the public hearing for possible reconfiguration of the Alpine School District closed and adjourned. It's 7 o'clock. Let's take about 3 or 4 minutes before we begin our regular school board meeting. If you would like to stay, you're invited to stay. If you need to leave, you're welcome to leave now. So let's begin our board meeting at 5 after. All right, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Scott Sumner, so we invite you to stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It never gets old. I love hearing that. Our inspirational thought tonight would be by Rich Stoll.
Thank you. I'm going to read a quote by the late Sir Ken Robinson. Human resources are like natural resources. They're often buried deep. You have to go looking for them. They're not just lying around on the surface. You have to create the circumstances where they show themselves. Today marks 3 months that I've been a member of the Alpine School District team, and I've been so impressed and humbled by the work that goes on here daily. Our district is a system that is designed to reveal and develop the best in our employees and our students. I'm so proud to be a part of an organization that does that thoughtfully and so well. Our dedicated employees, our Board of Education, and parents across the district partner daily to create the circumstances in which people can become their best selves. We should all be proud of that partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Next, one of our favorite things is recognitions. We love to look at the excellent things that are happening by students and teachers and families in our school district. So we would like to congratulate our graduating class of 2024. I don't know, did some of you go to a graduation this year? We did. And it was inspiring. We had more than 6,600 students graduate from Alpine School District. And I just want you to know your future is in good hands. I have the privilege of going to Timpanogos and Orem High graduation, and when I talk to the students and I see what they've done and I see their enthusiasm for giving service and being part of their communities and for working hard, I feel really confident that we are in good hands, and I am grateful that we all have a part in that, and that as educators we can give them that springboard to go into life and to go in with confidence and skills. So we love graduation. We're grateful for this time of year. Now, there's some other exciting things that have been happening. So, Mark, will you tell us about some high school state championships?
Certainly would like to. We'd like to honor these state championship teams from various schools. We, before, would try to bring them in, and it's really unwieldy with a soccer team or even the track and field. So we just are going to send certificates to them to be given during their recognition ceremonies. But we want to honor them here. From American Fork High School, the 6A boys soccer state champions, American Fork High 6A girls track and field state champions. From Timpanogos High, the 4A girls track and field state champions. From Lone Peak High, the 6A girls golf state champions. From Lehigh High, the 6A boys baseball state champions. And from Pleasant Grove High, the 6A boys volleyball state champions.
Okay, thank you. Just have to say, Alpine rocks. All right, we have no community comments for board meetings, so we'll move on to board business. First of all, we have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
And a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Ada and seconded by Mark. Are there any comments? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, the minutes stand approved. Claims, Dr. Farnsworth.
Yes, thank you, President Hacken. You have received the claims for the month, and I recommend you accept the claims.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the claims?
I move that we accept the claims.
Second. Okay, motion by Julie, second by Stacy. Are there any comments? For the public, well, we'll just go on. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, the claims are approved. Dr. Farnsworth, routine business.
Yes, you've received the routine business for the month, and I recommend you approve the routine business.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve routine business?
I move that we approve the routine business.
Thank you. Sarah has made a motion. Do I have a second? And Ada has seconded. Are there any comments? Okay, here for the public, routine business includes budget summary, the Alpine Foundation board summary, personnel hiring and releases, student trip requests, LEA specific licenses, and the 2024-25 negotiated policies. I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, the routine business has been approved. Dr. Farnsworth.
Okay, the first action item is the approval of the fiscal year 2024 final budget, and we recommend you approve the budget.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 24 final budget.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Stacy and seconded by Joy Lynn. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor of approving the fiscal year 24 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, fiscal budget for 24 passes.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the fiscal year 2025 tentative budget, which was reviewed with the board in study session, and we recommend your approval of the fiscal year 2025 tentative budget.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 tentative budget?
I move that we approve the fiscal year 25 tentative budget.
And do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Ada and seconded by Mark. Are there any comments or questions?
Is there no presentation on that?
We had a presentation and study session.
Yes, I'm aware, yeah. So, no, okay.
Is there anything, Jason, that you'd like to present at this point?
It works today. Does that work? No, we didn't have anything else prepared, but any questions we can be able to answer.
As presented in work session. So for our public, they can refer to our work session for a full run through the budget as posted.
And I believe it will be online at some point.
Correct.
It already is online. Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor? It's been moved by Ada and seconded by Mark. All in favor of approving the tentative fiscal year 25 budget, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Do we need to have a individual? Let's have a roll call vote on that, starting with Ada.
Board Member Wilson, aye.
Board Member Lincoln, no.
Board Member Clement, aye.
Board Member King, nay.
Board Member Hacken, aye.
Board Member Beeson, aye.
Board Member Bateman, nay.
Okay, it passes. Thank you. Dr. Farnsworth.
Yes, the next two action items are policies. These were not part of the negotiated agreement, but the policy committee has been working on these policies. We'll invite Craig Brinkerhoff, legal counsel, to come forward, who chairs that committee. The first policy, we're requesting retirement of that policy. It's policy 4736, and we recommend that that policy be retired.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick synopsis of these two policies. This particular one, the 4736, because of the nature of the policy and the way that it's carried out and administered, it has no effect typically on administrators because it requires that all personal leave or all vacation time to be taken before we can access this administrative leave. So in discussions with the Administrative Employee Association, they were agreeable that this policy could be done away with. You'll see 1.4 administrators can only use their personal leave when all vacation days have been used. We have a generous vacation leave policy that gives us plenty of time, and so it's very rare and quite difficult, if not impossible, to use those up to ever get to these. And so that was part of the justification for wanting to get rid of this policy, or retire it. Sorry, get rid of doesn't sound very good. Retire this policy.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to retire policy 4736?
I move to retire policy 4736, personal leave.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Joylyn, seconded by Sarah. Is there any discussion or comment? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, policy 4736 is retired. Dr. Farnsworth.
Thank you. Policy 5405, safety, health, and welfare. Some changes have been made to that policy, and we recommend that you approve the changes to policy 5405, safety, health, and welfare.
With this particular policy, we brought it into our standard format with our other policies. It had previously not had a statement of policy, so we added a statement of policy to this particular one. Also, that we adjusted just a couple words that made sense and made the policy read better. And then at the very bottom of the policy, we added a line that we took out of a policy that we previously retired, but that this line was important to our risk management team, and they requested that it be retained, and so this was a good place for that to be included. It fit well in this policy. It was taken from the student insurance policy that you might recall we retired, where previously we had contracted with insurance companies so people could get student insurance when they played athletics and other things. And where that is no longer being offered, we retired that policy, but this piece of that was important to our risk management team, so we've included that at the end of this policy.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion
I
to...
move.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve policy 5405, the safety, health, and welfare policy.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Sarah and seconded by Joy Lynn, who are both on the policy committee. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you. That policy has been approved. Dr. Farnsworth.
Yes, the last report on the agenda here is a membership report, and you have received that, the final one for the year. We still have 5 elementary schools over 1,000, and several right close to that, which we need to continue to monitor and adjust. And then we have a little bit of movement in our secondary schools. Some schools did not grow quite as anticipated, which is fine because we have significant number of students in Cedar Valley High School and Westlake High School. So they're down a little bit over projections, but we'll continue to monitor that as well. I know the board is contemplating a possible high school out in the west to address some of that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Farnsworth. We now have time for board member and superintendent reports and information items. Is there any board member that would like to make a report at this point? I would love to.
There's one question I had, though, on the FY25 budget. I think we need to have in there about the desire or not for the truth in taxation hearing. So I sent an email to the 3 of you with script on it, but I maybe didn't get it on that. Yeah, last year in ours when we were doing that, if we are, and it doesn't set those rates, but there was a script that we used, or the wording last year is to be able to accept the tax rate, and then also recommended tax rate will be finalized at a truth and taxation hearing in August.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so are you suggesting that we go back and revisit that vote with amended language?
Yeah, that the board meeting we had last year this time had this same or similar wording.
Okay, let's take care of that right now then. Let's see. We need to have someone make this motion.
President Hacken, I believe the proper way to do that would be to have a board member that voted for the item to vote to bring it back, and then we would redo the agenda, or the motion. So
I would like to move that we revisit the vote to approve the tentative fiscal year 25 budget.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved by Ada and seconded by Mark. All in favor of going back and revisiting that language, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that being the case, let's entertain a new motion.
Okay, I move that we approve the fiscal year 2024 final budget, and 2024-2025 fiscal year.
Tentative budget.
Budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, with a recommended tax rate of 0.005531. The recommended rate does not include the charter local levy of 0.000067 set by the Tax Commission and may change due to the certified tax setting process. The recommended tax rate will be finalized at a truth and taxation hearing scheduled for August 13th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
Do we have a second for that?
I second it.
As stated, correct?
Definitely.
Okay, is there any discussion about that, or Jason, do you want to clarify that?
Yeah, I can
Thank
clarify.
you.
So what it's saying there is that may change. There's some things. So the basic rate hasn't been set yet. That should come out on Friday or Monday. That's just set by the state and doesn't change a lot. That changes how much comes in through property taxes, but we're guaranteed an amount through the WPU. So if the basic rate goes up and brings in more money through local property taxes, the state portion would go down to be able to match the guarantee, or vice versa. If the basic rate went down, then there'd be more from income tax from the state. So that's not the final thing. There's still some, just this week, we got the final ones set by the county for the board, and then the voted, and then debt service is going to be in the next few days also. So there are some moving parts still on that. So the 5531 is where it's at right now, but this motion says whatever the certified tax rate takes it to, we approve. But then it also, at this point, says if we don't vote now to be able to say have a hearing in August, that may or may not pass whatever is decided. And I think on Friday we'll decide the amounts that go into, that'll show up on people's notices, tax notices, to be able to have the hearing. So those don't have to be set tonight on what increments the board would like to go for, just that they want to have the hearing to entertain the idea of it. And so it's already with the county. We set that early in January, try to be one of the first ones on, just so we have the time that aligns with our board meeting. So August 13th is a Tuesday, 6 p.m., to be able to have that hearing.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So again, I think this is just characteristic, as we spoke about in our work session, that we in this budget do not make any assumptions, and this amendment will clarify that there could be some movement in this budget.
The budget as presented for FY25 included the rates as they would be from what the certified tax rate does, with no extra increments that would be through the truth and taxation process. So nothing is in the book assumed that the board will do. But if the board would like, we discussed in study session the possibility of some increments in the board levy in the capital and be able to reduce the debt service levy again to be able to offset some of those increases.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I thought we had determined that Friday was just a work session to start the conversation, but then you said we were going to determine an amount?
I think I misspoke. Study session today is what I was referring to, not our work session that's coming up.
The amounts to be able to set for the tax notices that go out are due on June 21st. So we have to go into the system to be able to say this is the max. So like last year, the board in that process around June 21st said we're going to increase the capital rate 4 increments, the board by 3 increments, and that is what went on people's tax notices. When we came to the August meeting, then that was determined that that's what the board wanted to do, but the board could have done less than that, but not more. So whatever's decided to put by the board to be able to put as an increase in taxes to go out in notices, those tax notices go out and they say what time the hearing is also. So those all have to be generated by June 21st or entered by June 21st so the county has time to complete all of the notices that go out in the summer before those meetings.
So I thought we had those conversations in small groups. So this is a work session is different, right? So it hasn't been noticed. If we're going to vote, doesn't it have to be noticed as a board meeting?
It will be noticed.
I thought it was just a work session. Okay, just want us all on the same page.
Other questions or comments? So it has been moved by Sarah and seconded by Mark. Do we need to read the entire statement again? Or can we vote as memory serves? All right, all in favor of the substitute motion as read by Sarah, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
No.
Roll call vote.
Board Member Wilson, aye.
Board Member Lincoln, no.
Board Member Clement, aye.
Board Member King, nay.
Board Member Hacken, aye.
Board Member Beeson, aye.
Board Member Bateman, nay.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any board member reports? I would like to share one thing. I attended the STAR Summer Reading Program this morning with the Alpine Foundation, and that program is a program for young folks who need just a little more help. And it is a fabulous program. And this year, we have about 20 sites, and we have several classes at each site, about 3 classes at each site. And we have about 1,500 kids enrolled who are thriving. They are loving it. They have a 3-hour rotation where they do something each hour. This year they are integrating science with literacy and doing some really, really fun science activities that are emphasizing literacy. And they showed us some test scores from last summer. And the rising first graders, so these are little guys leaving kindergarten, coming into first grade. They came in last summer at a 3.5% proficiency overall, and they left with a 58% proficiency after only 4 weeks of the STAR Summer program. And so I asked them if they are tracking these kids to see how much loss there could be during the summer, like what is their beginning of their scores. And they're holding up really, really well. They did have that data for last year. So I congratulate Alpine Foundation and all those teachers who are participating in that. And it is just so exciting to see these little guys. And they were so cute this morning. Like, oh, I get it, I get it. And this is one of the things the foundation provides for the district that's just outstanding because it's all paid for with foundation money. And the Title I sites are paid for with Title I money. Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing none. No? Okay, Stacy.
Oh, hold on, we're just fighting over who goes first.
Oh, okay, great. Good.
So last week I attended one of the administrative PD days, and I think this is one of the things we probably don't talk a lot about to our public with, if you're not in an SEC or PTA meeting. But over the last couple of years, there's been a switch in kind of how the district supports schools and the goals that the schools set. And it has been a phenomenal thing to watch. Everybody's kind of got the same priority areas, but each school gets to set goals that are unique to that school. And then this PD day was kind of the kickoff for next year. So what are you building on? You know, what things are changing? And I think there is an excitement among administrators that I haven't really seen before. Just everybody knows what their goals are and what they're chasing. And I love that we are looking out for both the academic and social emotional needs of students. And so just wanted to say thank you to our principals who came and spent their day and just watching kind of the breakout conversations and how everybody's interacting with each other. It's a really fantastic thing to watch and to see how great they are and how they're preparing for our kids when it is so hot outside and they're indoors. So just grateful for them and for the district team for providing that opportunity for them to get together and to get ready for the next year.
Board Member Wilson, go ahead.
I just, we, as the board, received an email from Jody Lindsay that I was really excited about. She is reporting on our district-wide seal of biliteracy numbers that are just off the charts. And I just wanted to to brag a little bit about what they're doing from going from single digits. We have gone, in 2020, we had 53 seal of biliteracy graduates. Then we went to 255, 371, 520, and this past year, 647 graduates graduated with their seal of biliteracy in a combination of 11 languages, which I think is amazing. So thank you to Jody Lindsay and her team.
Do you want to comment on, or do you know what they have to do to earn that?
It's here. 18 or higher. Yeah.
So they have
18 or
to-
higher on their ACT test, 3 or higher on their AP English test, 3 or higher on the English section of Aspire, a 4.2 WIDA composite score, and a 12 in speaking, writing, and one. Anyway, it's extensive. It's not just a giveaway.
Yeah, they have to show literacy in both their foreign language and in English. Yes. And so these kids work really hard at this. This is a remarkable achievement. And I think business and industry leaders are valuing this. When they see these kids coming in with this seal of biliteracy, they know they're solid, they know 2 languages thoroughly, and they're very much in demand in the workplace.
So part of that test is they have to demonstrate both in a verbal conversation and written. So it's not, I mean, it's a significant thing, and every student does that live. So I think sometimes we don't talk a lot about how long and intense the process is for them to pass that.
Okay, Dr. Farnsworth, do you have
Yes,
any?
I would like to take a moment and recognize Kimberly Bird. She is a member of our senior leadership team, has spent several years in Alpine School District, and is retiring this year. We have developed what we call the Influencer Award, and you can read up there the purpose behind this. But this is given rarely to a few individuals who have shown significant influence on others. And all of us on the senior leadership team have been influenced significantly by Kimberly Bird. She in her career has served in various positions. I don't know of anyone who has served in more of a variety of positions than Kimberly, and has done each of those incredibly well. She's currently Executive Director of Operations Communications, was a teacher at Westridge, principal at Northridge, worked as a Director of Human Resources, Public Relations, Assistant to the Superintendent, just a multitude of varying responsibilities. Oversaw operations, communications, district spokesperson, and just has left a significant impact on Alpine School District. She's always jovial, positive, and a great team member. And we are honored to give her the Influence Award and wish her well in her future endeavors as she continues to be a significant influence on others. Thank you, Kimberly.
Kimberly, come up. No, come up. You have to come up here. All right, are there any other reports? And congratulations, Kimberly, well deserved. You have been an influence on me and I think everyone on this board and most of the people in this room. Okay, do I have no other comments or reports? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Mark and seconded by Sarah. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you for coming.